Bueno, amigos, qué placer. Estamos con una leyenda. Estamos con un tremendo hombre del boxeo, Jim Langley. ¿Quién no conoce a Jim Langley, la voz de HBO Boxing durante mucho tiempo y que ahora está con payperview.com y que va a estar comentando la pelea de Anthony Joshua contra Francis Ngannou? Well, my friends, we're here with a legend, Jim Langley, the voice of boxing. So many years hearing your voice alongside the big fight. And this is a big fight, Jim, Francis Ngannou and Anthony Joshua. For a lot of people, was a surprise what Ngannou did to Fury, but the surprise element is gone. How do you see this fight, and how do you see Joshua taking notes for what happened to Fury?
Well, Joshua is a different fighter than Fury, and there are some significant kinds of advantages that Fury should have had against Ngannou, and seemed to have to a lesser degree than we might have expected. And there are some different kinds of advantages that Joshua may find that he has against Ngannou. It's two different matchups with possibly two different results, or maybe the same kind of thing. And obviously, Ngannou is a real athlete who was tremendously motivated by the experience of fighting against the heavyweight boxing champion of the world. Obviously, when an outcome like that takes place, a lot of people are going to leap to the conclusion that, or the conclusion, I should say, that Fury underestimated him, that Fury didn't pay significant attention to the event. And yet you're invited to do that in the case of Tyson Fury, who, for instance, in the months leading up to that, launched a vanity reality television project, the kind of thing that's now available to a celebrity of that nature in the media world, and which is nothing other than a distraction. So we can only guess and speculate as to how utterly distracted Fury was getting ready to fight what he probably thought was a lesser craftsman in Ngannou. Probably Ngannou was more of a craftsman than Fury anticipated, and that's why they wind up having what amounted to a close fight. It creates a brand new possibility because, of course, Fury and Joshua are constantly engaged now in a public relations war for the affection and allegiance of the British audience, and by falling short of what was expected of him against Ngannou, Fury created an opportunity for Joshua to get the better of him by proxy, in effect. So if Joshua goes in, produces a truly effective boxing performance, confuses and outperforms Ngannou, he can point to that and say, see, I've always been better than Fury, and here's the evidence.
One of the elements of this fight that made the fight so fascinating is the way that Joshua handled some strikes in the face, because we know Joshua is the better fighter for sure, but the power of Ngannou can be denied. How do you see this conflict between the power of Ngannou and the boxing of Joshua?
Well, I think that Joshua loses audience every time he is shown to need caution and to have to be cautious. But there's evidence in the past, particularly the upset loss to Andy Ruiz, that he needs to protect his chin. Like most normal fighters, by the way, there's no crime in protecting your chin. The question is, when do you remember to do it and how effectively do it? Joshua has a great jab. Joshua has good footwork. Joshua can do the kinds of things that could keep him out of trouble against Ngannou. But then the question becomes, will the crowd boo? Will the audience respond in a negative way when, in effect, you're engaging in a public relations war with another guy who doesn't happen to be here in the ring? So, just as when Fury was in the ring against Ngannou, Joshua was there, in a sense, by proxy, waiting to see what would happen. Now, Fury is in the ring for Joshua and Ngannou, waiting to see what happens and how his performance against Ngannou is going to compare in the eyes of the public to whatever Joshua does.
Boxers don't know how important are for other people. His little story is that Ngannou was working in mines in Cameroon when he was in his youth, and he tells the story. He was always thinking in Mike Tyson. That's the figure. He don't want to be an MMA fighter. He wants to be a boxer like Mike Tyson. And now he has Mike Tyson in his corner. How much is a motivating fighter for him to have such a legend?
Well, I think, I've asked about that and I've gotten differing answers. One answer that I've gotten from a couple of knowledgeable experts in the last couple of days is, hey, the contact between Ngannou and Tyson is relatively incidental. He's not exactly a part of Ngannou's brain trust. Yes, may have visited the camp for a couple of days, but it's not as if he's some kind of assistant trainer. If I were Ngannou, I would get as close to Mike as I could and listen to everything Mike has to say, because Mike was trained a while back by a genuinely great, historic, legendary teacher of the craft, Customato, and Mike knows the craft. He understands all the technical realities of boxing. He has never been just a slugger. Ngannou runs the risk of being just a slugger unless he pays attention to people who can genuinely spell out boxing craft for him. And I think Mike is one of those people. So if Mike is still involved in a dialogue with Francis Ngannou and helping him prepare to be in the boxing ring, Ngannou needs to listen to him. And of course, a part of the Ngannou narrative that makes him intriguing and interesting is this idea that he hit a speed meter with a punch harder than it has ever been hit, and therefore set what media now like to call a world record for punching power. Novel concept. But it suggests the obvious, that if Ngannou gets into a position where he can hit Joshua flush with one shot, he can maybe put him to sleep, which he did not quite accomplish against Fury.
My last question: is this a fight that reassure us how good boxer is Francis Ngannou, or this is the fight that finally said, okay, Joshua is not good for this level? What is going to happen in this fight?
There are a lot of answers that can come from it. I think it's the least exciting option, but the most likely outcome is that Joshua boxes conservatively, stays within his envelope, doesn't take any unnecessary chances that put him at risk against Ngannou's big punching power, and works his way toward a clear, unanimous decision that leaves him unmarked and undamaged and headed forward toward other fights. That to me is the most likely outcome, and the one that will be least satisfying to the general global boxing audience. But the intelligent business for Joshua is to get a W any way he can and not worry about whether he looks better than Fury, or whether he does more damage than Fury, or whether he's more exciting than Fury. He's not fighting Fury. He needs to focus on the guy in front of him. The guy in front of him is an MMA fighter of whom logic says that he doesn't have the kind of boxing craft that Joshua has. But he had enough boxing craft to give Fury trouble. So Joshua needs to take it seriously.
Well, it's been a pleasure, Dean. Always a pleasure to speak with you, to pick up your brain, your mind. Thank you so much for this minute. Really.
Thank you, Jorge. My privilege.